Mercedes are well known for building cars that make a lot of sense. There's the A-Class, C-Class, E-Class, all genius. But occasionally, they go a bit crazy and they build something that makes no sense whatsoever. Cars like the GLB 35. This car has so many contradictions. It's a smallish SUV with 7 seats. It's smaller than a lot of its rivals, and yet they allow you to pack more people and things inside. It was originally designed for families, but then they gave it to AMG, who couldn't give a monkeys about that stuff, and even the price doesn't make sense. The original GLB cost around £30,000. This one cost well over 50 grand.
So it's contradictory, very niche, and far from cheap. It doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. But I think you'll agree the world went mad a long time ago. And if you live in a crazy world where family wagons have 306 horsepower, sometimes it's just best to embrace it.
When in Rome, Sport Plus, brake, accelerate, race start. Ooh, here we go. Oh, yes. Those gear changes are hilarious. That was 0 to 62 in 5.3 seconds, and it probably felt a bit quicker than that actually. And it comes courtesy of a 2-litre inline 4-cylinder engine banging out 306 horsepower. Woo! That is plenty for this thing. It's actually the same engine you get in the Mercedes-AMG A35, hence the name, GLB 35, and it's a properly strong unit. Off the line, it just goes. You get 400 Newton meters of torque, and because it's got an all-wheel drive system, the 4MATIC system, it's never wanting for traction. You point it, you send it, and it disappears. Cheeky little noise as well, it sounds decent. All right, AMGs are famous for their V8s, but in Sport Plus mode, it's got an addictive little sound to it, this thing. Makes you want to push. Right, what's it like in the corners? Yeah, not bad, not bad.
The speed-sensitive steering system is new, as is the front suspension, which now features bespoke control arms and steering knuckles, and the new stiffer subframe assembly. Rear suspension is pretty much the same, but there are stiffer hubs designed to take more load through corners. The brakes are bigger too, 350mm at the front and 330s at the rear. And with all this, it handles itself quite nicely.
It's not the first AMG I'd pick if I was going on a track day, but it's the old cliche, isn't it? Drop the kids off at school and take the long way home. Or take the short way home, but do it very, very quickly. So, it's fun to drive, but it's a family SUV, and family SUVs need one other crucial ingredient. They have to be sexy to look at, so you can stand out in the school car park. And you know what? This is actually a very, very handsome car. Can't work out whether it's big or small though. It's kind of chunky yet compact at the same time. Almost like a mini G-wagon. This one's been given to AMG, of course, so they've modified it ever so slightly with a few AMG unique bits. It's got front splitter, rear diffuser, twin exhausts at the rear. This particular car has also been finished with the night pack, meaning that various elements all around the car, including around the window frames and the door sills, have been finished in gloss black. Plus, here's something else that's weird, right? The original GLB had raised suspension, which they cheered because it was built for families, and that made it more comfortable and more versatile off-road. And yet, this GLB 35 has lowered suspension, which they're cheering because that makes it more sporty. Talk about contradictions.
Having said that, there is no inconsistency where the interior is concerned. It's great. It has a rugged yet modern interior with a great infotainment screen and all the tech you could wish for. There's plenty of space too. The second row offers good head and leg room, rear seat heating controls and USBs for the kids, and it has a large 500-litre boot which offers a lot of space for life's accessories, even if this all-wheel drive version has 5 litres less than the two-wheel drive diesel. Mercedes even gives you the option of 7 seats, although the rearmost seats really are designed only for children or grown-ups with a fetish for being permanently uncomfortable.
So what's the GLB 35 like when you're driving in everyday situations, like taking your nan to the dentist? This is exactly how I take my nan to the dentist, by the way, in a sporty SUV. That's what she likes. Well, it's all right. But the first thing that I notice in this car is how hard the seats are. I don't know why they're so hard, but they're pretty uncomfortable if you ask me. I'm a little bit delicate at the moment. I injured my back last week. My lower back is in agony, but I've driven 3 separate cars today. My Mustang, GLB 35, and a Cupra Formentor. And these seats, by far, are the worst of the 3. Okay, they're not a deal breaker. Maybe I'm getting old, but I just think they didn't have to be quite this firm. What about suspension? Actually, quite impressed by that. I expected that to be a little bit on the harsh side as well, given the fact they've lowered the suspension for the GLB 35, but it rides really nicely. It's really smooth. It isn't put off by potholes or speed bumps. It is very, very composed over rough surfaces. The suspension does different things depending on what mode you're in. If you're in Sport Plus, it stiffens up slightly, but not to the point where it becomes unbearable. And it really does a great job of limiting the body roll. It doesn't feel particularly top heavy despite the overall shape of the car. It feels like it's got quite a lot of the weight low down. Then when you slacken it off into comfort mode, it softens up pretty nicely. Although I will say it does suffer from that head toss phenomenon that quite a few recent Mercedes SUVs tend to suffer from. In other words, the undulations in the road cause the body to move around, which causes your body to move around, and it makes your head move around a bit like one of those wobbly head dolls. It's not quite as bad as you get in the GLE, for example, but it is noticeable if you're looking for it. Is it easy to drive? For the most part, yes. Light steering, very direct, very simple controls, but it's not all perfect. Because this model is the all-wheel drive version, the turning circle isn't quite as good as you get on the standard car. And around town, that basically means that a 3-point turn can sometimes turn into a 5-point turn. And that's when you discover another little issue that I'm not a huge fan of in the GLB 35. This gear selector switch isn't as responsive as I'd like it to be. It seems to take a second, maybe half a second too long to switch between reverse and drive. And when you're doing those low-speed maneuvers, that's when you notice another little quirk of the GLB 35, and that is, it seems a bit lethargic to get going. For example, let me slow down now, pretend I'm in traffic, so I'm doing around sort of 10 miles an hour, accelerate, and it probably takes a second and a half before it starts to get going. It feels like some of that is it kicking down, some of it is turbo lag, and it's just a little bit, it's not quite immediate enough for my liking. Having driven quite a lot of electric vehicles recently where the torque is just instantaneous, having that little bit of a gap, just a little bit frustrating. A quick word on fuel economy while I'm here, obviously very important for families. Not amazing in this car. Today I've averaged around sort of low 20s, and yeah, I have been driving fairly enthusiastically, but that's what you get when you have a fairly powerful, performance-oriented car in a reasonably large, heavy body. If you're looking to save a few quid, maybe get the diesel.
Is it worth the £51,000 price tag? Well, there are far cheaper ways to get into a family car with 300 horsepower. A Cupra Formentor with similar power is around 10 grand cheaper and arguably better in a lot of ways. But the GLB 35 might be the only car in this performance bracket with the option of 7 seats. So it offers a very unique blend of extreme speed and extreme practicality in a car that isn't extremely big.
In summary then, should you buy a Mercedes GLB 35? Well, yeah. Why not? I mean, on paper, but it's the kind of car that doesn't seem to make any sense. But who says cars have to make sense? I like the fact that there's variety in this world. Variety is the spice of life, and there's nothing else on the market that I can think of that delivers this blend of talents. It's the shape of a van. It drives a bit like an AMG. It seats 7 people. It looks really cool and really different.
So on balance, despite the few little flaws it might have, the GLB 35 is weird, wonderful, and definitely worth considering.